Hey guys, welcome to the MC Anime Podcast. We cover anime, geek culture, Japanese aesthetics, and Asian studies. We are a multi-fandom podcast, and you can expect to hear topics in your favorite hobby or fandom activity potentially. You can find MC Anime on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Also, please check out mcanimepodcast.com, our website. Furthermore, stay tuned in for another episode.
To another episode of MC Anime. MC here, and Leslie is back. How's it going?
It is going. What is this, like the third or fourth time I've been on this great thing?
Oh yeah, you're here, you're helping out. That's how it goes.
Yeah, and, well, the topic you gave me is something I'm very interested in. So,
hey, my topics are pretty interesting, so you can't complain.
No, I don't, and I get to talk to you. I like my conversations with you.
Exactly. And if you want to see more podcasts near you, like Apple or podcast directories, we also on www.mcanimepodcast.com. We also have the Patreon community. You can support us on there, and give us some heads up and give us some recognition. Anyway, this particular episode of MC Anime will be Halloween origins and the lore. We have Leslie, who's a big fan of Halloween, and it's going to talk about the different origins and how the lore came to be. So, the essence of Halloween, what does it come down to? The original origin.
The essence of Halloween, so it deals with the fall or the harvest season, where I guess back in the olden days, when farmers and stuff were growing, they would grow from like the spring all the way for like 6 months. They're working their fields and trying to get the best crops that they can, and then as the days start to fade away more into night, it's time that they start harvesting their year's worth of crops. And so Halloween is like the harvest time.
Doesn't the harvest also have to do sacrificing as well? Like you give some type of sacrifice in order to do the harvest?
I guess some societies and religions do that. Because back in the day, I think it's a pagan or Celtic or probably around the world, is you give sacrifices of some of the best crops, maybe even animals, to the gods to, thank them for giving you a plentiful harvest, or, nothing came and destroyed your crops over the years, whether it be animals or raiding parties, so that kind of thing. So yeah, there is, sacrificing there. It's giving an offering to the celestial beings for protecting them throughout the year.
And the main thing of Halloween, before Halloween, is Samhain, a religious festival, Celtic spiritual tradition. So it's in Celtic tradition. It's a word that's song wind, and when you usually celebrate it from October 31st to November 1st, you welcome the dark half of the year, and then you believe that the barriers in the physical world break down during song wind. You learn more interactions between humans and the dense citizens of the underworld. So what do you think of the dense citizens of the otherworld? What do you think that?
Hard to pronounce, yeah. So from what I looked into Sarwin, is they talk about it as the doorway between the human or the earthly realm and like the spiritual world or whatever, they're dissolved for like the night or whatever, and that's when they're at their thinnest. So there's always talks about that's where they have like fairies and creatures kind of crossing over, where you have not humans, but like monsters, stuff like that. They're able to walk on Earth, so to speak, for the night. And as you said, it is bringing in the darker coming, and days are going to be a lot shorter. Nightfall is going to be longer. So it's kind of like they're, like you said, you get to harvest. You're offering your food, maybe your best to whatever to keep you protected during the long night that are ahead, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And ancient Sunwind is kind of interesting because the clout is very significant for the four-quarter fire festival. It's a midpoint between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. So do you think the date is kind of significant between the equinox and solstice?
Yes, because usually like I said, where I live up north in the U.S., when it started to sun instead of going on, setting at like 10 o'clock at night, it's starting to set at like 6:30, and pretty soon the days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer, and I think Halloween is kind of like the last of like the weather's still decent before it's nighttime falls at like 4 o'clock, every day. And so yeah, it's kind of like the happy medium between that and the winter solstice, which is, if I'm correct, is the time where you have the longest nighttime.
Yep,
so
the longest day and night is day.
It's kind of like a good medium point there, so to speak.
During this time, they were set fire to a wheel. The field was a representation of the sun. They prayed with it. Cattle was a sacrifice. Participants took a flame from the communal bonfire back to home to relight the hearth. Basically, it's a hearth type fire. So what do you think of like hearth and how fire is like symbolic?
Well, I mean, probably like I said, back in ancient times, fire was basically the only way to see at night. So fire, as it's saying, representing the sun, is representing light, so you'd be able to see into the darkness, That's what I'm understanding, but I could be totally wrong. You can have some scholar that's a lot smarter than me tell me what the real reason is, or what they think the real reason is, but that's what I'm assuming the fire is representing, and that's why they go to their house and everything, so they have light, so they can be able to see around their house and stuff like that when they're dealing with the nighttime.
Oh, well, okay. Also, another thing with fire. Fire is a visual. It casts whatever embers to be able to see in a limited path. So the fire can guide you. So in going back to the hearth and taking the original fire, the wheel, back to your house is like a guide of preventing the darker half of the year to interfere with you on this particular night in this celebration.
Okay. That does make
your path forward to not have the other world to interfere with you during this close point realm congregation of otherworldly things doing in your life.
Yeah, it's true. Okay. Right on. Man, how do you know all sorts of stuff? You just study it all the time? Jeez, you get a lot of
This my personal belief is that, a lot of times fire is like a weakness of the dead, or a weakness to blind. Vampire can't be in this direct sunlight, all this other stuff of lore and mystery.
Yeah.
The Lord of the Rings, the entire orcs cannot be in sunlight. They burn. They have to go underneath during the day to even be able to do stuff.
Or like the Nazgul or whatever, to get beaten up by fire and scares them away. You can't kill them, but kind of scares them to go away.
True, and also fire is a truth. So the fire is just there.
Yeah.
But it seeks the truth and prevents any interference. It's like a gateway between. Not a gateway. It's more like a division of path, and it's in the way, so it blocks it temporarily, and you can use fire as a means to escape.
Yeah.
So that's ancient Song. Now we go into like a little bit into the monsters of Song. So what do you believe of the monsters associated with Song?
Supposedly creatures or beings from another world come and start roaming the streets at night, you know? And I think as it pertains to like modern Halloween, people dress up in costumes being scary and handing out treats, it's kind of like people will put on these disguises so they can like kind of blend in with these monsters, you know, or creatures from another world and not be hurt, or you know, they're basically like kind of roaming with the mob. They're one of them, and the otherworldly beings have no other idea. So that's why I think costumes and stuff is a disguise, so they can be able to walk among the beings from this other realm. And then I assume that the candy is like them putting out like an offering or like food for them, so they don't get attacked. They would be like, they're going up to a place and like, oh, there's food. They're not hungry anymore, and they take the offering and move on to the next place, so to speak, you know?
Yep. The candy is the offering in modern day application. Now, another aspect of the moms, you know, with the passing of loved ones, ancestors are believed to come from beyond the plane during this night, also known as the Land of the Dead, the Day of the Dead. So, what's the big implication of Day of the Dead and Samhain?
Well, Samhain is dealing with like more harvest. That the Day of the Dead, I believe, from what I understand from Latin cultures, is, like you said, is a day that they, you know, I was gonna say worship, I'm trying to think of the best word. They, you know, remember their ancestors and stuff, and it's the Day of the Dead. You see the Church of Gold. They're just basically, you know, maybe it'd be like a kid remembering their dead parents or grandparents or aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters. You know, they kind of reminisce about their, whether it be, you know, one that they knew, a relative that's long been dead, is to kind of, you know, just have representation of their ancestors, their culture, remembering where they came from. And it's kind of showing love for the spirits of their ancestors, and that's how they show respect.
And another thing, Day of the Dead, that's kind of interesting, is the day after Samhain or Halloween.
Really?
But as the passing of, you know, the dark of the year come to pass, the remembrance of the spirits that are left of the ancestral plane, seeking to maybe reconvene with the living in a way as well.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You know, and another thing about like Samhain, or like why it kind of represents with like monsters and stuff, I do know that like they believe that the stars and certain things are aligned to kind of bring energy, you know, negative energy or magical energy or something like that into it's kind of like lined up perfectly. So that's why you'll have things associated with it, because, you know, a lot of the stars come out during this time of year, so to speak.
And some of the, you know, monsters of ancient Scotland is like the Doorhound, which is the imperious creatures, headless men on horses with their heads. We also have the Pooka, you know, to receive the Harvard offerings. Lady Gwyn. There's also a headless woman in white with a black pig. So there's a lot of different applications of different creatures of different flora tracing back. It also is believed that, you building up to what Starwind in the other world looks like in theory.
Yeah, and don't forget about Mike Myers too. You know, he only comes out during Halloween season, and you know, stalks the streets. I'm joking, but that's another thing why they probably have the offerings out there is so beings from the other realm or world or whatever, they don't come and kidnap people and bring them over to their realm, you know, so to speak. It's the safeguard themselves, giving some protection as well, because you know they don't want to be kidnapped or taken or you know and brought over, and then the walls that divide their world is back up, and then they have no way of getting back there until a year or whatever, you know.
You know, it's interesting to see the transition of ancient Songland, and then we get into another layer of Songland, the Middle Ages associated with Songland, because Songland continues on centuries later, so it's still wrong. It just takes a different form. So I think, you know, and instead of it's now a tradition for families to protect themselves from the fairies and now the witches. So now the witches are introduced into the Middle Ages in Songland. You know, you have the Solomons, which are personal Solomon fires, or you know, they're closer to the farms and actually able to do things in a way that's beneficial for the family during this time frame. Because the Middle Ages is a really devastating time.
It's definitely very brutal, a very you know, a lot of change was happening in the world, so to speak. So
I guess the tradition of Songland kind of like on this time of year gives a sense of comfort and custom in what you did before. Having a fire festival to, you know, just enjoy, pass the time, you know, have a day to seek. It's gonna come, so get ready for it, stuff like that. And harvest is still a big thing during this time as well. It's actually even more so in the Middle Ages, because now they have hardly any food. It's plagues and starvation happening.
Yeah, when you talk about the Middle Ages, you have the bubonic plague. You have, you know, a lot of wars going on. Different societies like the Vikings that would come and just raid people, steal their stuff. You have, you know, you had the Crusades going on, and you know, just a lot of different things of different countries, you know, taking over other countries, vice versa, you know, and just, there's a lot of blood, a lot of just death, and life was probably a little bit more scarier back then, so to speak, than, you know, people, like you say, modern times are, you know?
It's also, or in the times that they have, there's very little time to treasure, so Songland could be a coping mechanism for a couple of days to provide a sense of normalcy, because there wasn't much normalcy back then. And another thing with, you know, festivals and certain days of the year, it brings out certain invocation of what you want and expectation to those days delivering, just enjoying the day. It kind of gives you something to root for as well.
Yeah.
You ever feel like you were like rooting for a particular day to happen and you couldn't wait and it finally came and you were like overthrilled?
Oh, a couple of times in my life, yeah, where it's just like, you know, it's like, man, I've been waiting for this to happen for a while, and you're like a week away, and you're like, can you just happen now? But we have to, like, you know, so I have to go live my life until that day comes, and then it's just like, boom, you know, it's just so amazing, and it's pretty crazy. But yeah,
Now imagine that aspect applied to the Middle Ages and how dire the situation is for a festival type activity to give the people morale.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it, like Solid. You know, it is a morale booster. You have the whole town or village getting together. They're bringing all their crops and their livestock, and they have a big feast because they're celebrating their hard work. So there's, they're having this food everywhere. There's drinking, and maybe people are, just dancing or enjoying themselves. It's like a big party because pretty soon it's gonna be winter, and they're not gonna be able to do much because they're dealing with snow and freezing to death. So this is kind of like a time for them to just have it out, because they've been working for 6 months out of the year or whatever, or so to speak, just to like have fun, and they're hard working, and this is like finally able to let loose and relax and have like their little fun time from all the hard work they put in for the past, like I said, 6-7 months.
The original jack-o'-lanterns were not pumpkins, they were turnips.
They're turnips? I thought the jack-o'-lanterns were like orbs or whatever, but now they're turnips. Okay, you have to tell me this.
They called turnips. They called it jack-o'-lanterns. And, they put a light in it, they carved it, and that's how, pumpkins have a ghoulish face when you illuminate by candles. Now, the practice of decorating was in Ireland. Large turnips and potatoes, sort of early canvases. The name jack-o'-lantern comes from the folktale by a man named Stingy Jack. Irish immigrants brought the tradition to America, home with the pumpkin, and became an integral part of Halloween festivities. From some.
Oh, I didn't know about the whole turnip thing. Yeah, I'm gonna have to now. I want to make a jack-o'-lantern. I have a pumpkin and carve it this weekend. Like,
you're gonna carve a pumpkin? Oh boy. You carve a turnip.
Yeah, they'd be like, "Yo, I'm representing the real stuff, bringing it back."
Pumpkins are only used as they changed it to make it more acceptable, and it just happened to change. That's all that happened.
You know how things kind of change up or whatever,
Oh yeah. You have like a place like Wales, you would burn the wood and violent games, set up fireworks. Men in England would parade with noisemakers. So the different traditions of Scotland was not originally known as Halloween until the merging of Scotland with Halloween. That's when it became Halloween. So that shift is mostly in the Christian focus, actually.
Yeah, and then you have like the All Hallows Eve or whatever. I think is like and it's kind of like all put it together like Halloween and made it into one like more universal day, I guess you would say.
We have the dumb supper. Food was consumed by the celebrants, but only after inviting ancestors to join to give the families a chance to interact with the spirits until they left. Following the dinner, children would play games to entertain the dead. The adults would update the dead on the past year's news. That night, doors and windows might be left open for the dead to come in, eat the cakes that have been left for them. So who do you actually believe ate the cakes?
The dead. The dead eat the cakes.
Okay.
Or the children. I mean, if you believe the story, it would say it's the dead, yet they're leaving out the good for them, so to speak. So.
Okay, I believe it. So this is where Christianity kind of trying to take a hold of Scotland, and Christianity gained a foothold in pagan communities. Trailblazers try to reframe Samhain as a Christian celebration. So they take a religion, they take one tradition somewhere else, and try to adapt it to their own customs and ideological thinking. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's been happening all throughout history. You know, when some group comes in and is conquered another people, they kind of take, I guess, whatever they do and their customs and combine it with their own and make something new. So I'm sure there's a lot of other holidays and stuff from other different peoples around the world that have been conquered by other people that have just been completely wiped out, and it's really hard to know. You know, that's why Samhain and all these festivals are only, there's evidence out there, but it's been so far gone, you know, just how it transitioned, that you're not sure what is real and what is just kind of like hearsay, you know?
Oh yeah. 5th century, they try to move it to May 13th. Specifies the day celebrating saints and the martyrs. The fire festivals of October and November did not end with this degree, so even though they tried to move the day to May 13th, October and November still had the fire festivals as planned, so that didn't change. And then we had the 9th century, Pope Gregory. The celebration was back to the time of the fire festivals, but now November 1st was All Saints Day, and then November 2nd was All Souls Day, following the Land of the Dead tradition.
So yeah, okay, they're just like All Saints. So eventually, instead of having all these different things day after day, they just kind of put it all together. I get what you're saying.
Oh yeah, they put it together, but you know, All Saints Day, okay? What do you think of saint? You think of pure or coming in, souls, you think of interacting with the saints kind of thing.
Yeah, All Saints Day, you're thinking of, you know, very righteous people that are virtuous, that are nothing but good intentions that they have. So yeah, having that associated with Halloween is kind of like different, you know?
Yep. And Samhain merges with Halloween, so this is how Halloween came into play. There's not neither Halloween and for the celebration. October 31st is All Hallows Eve or Halloween. It contained much of the traditional pagan practices before being adopted in 19th century America to the traditions across the ocean with Irish. So I think Halloween transition through history is an example of how things come to be and how things come to change given years to age on the idea. What is your thoughts about that?
Just how things change. I mean, you know, a lot of things don't stay the same. You know, it is just as us as people or as humans, we kind of evolved from being living in caves and just gathering stuff to, you know, turning animals to domesticate them or being partnered with us, getting better weapons than the sticks we find, start growing our own crops, you know, and then even further back, you start realizing, you know, as we started again evolving, we talk about Halloween, so it's harvesting. You learn when to plant crops, you kind of know when to start harvesting them. You develop, you know, learning about all the different things in the earth, and you get a better understanding of how things work. And the more information, more stuff you learn, the better, you know, you can get with crops, livestock, and growing things. You just evolve, and that's just how traditions or, you know, holidays do. They just evolve from stuff that happened long ago. They take part of this one, and they bring it into this, you know, and they just kind of take from a bunch of different holidays from different cultures and make new ones. bind them all together or whatever. You know what I mean?
Here's a little Easter egg that you might like. Trick-or-treating. It was derived from ancient Irish and Scottish practices to the nights leading up to Samhain. You know, you were mourning the practice of putting on costumes, going door to door, singing songs to the dead. Cakes were given as a payment. So here's the transition. We have costumes for the monsters. Door to door is basically like the community aspect. Visiting different people in your monster costume or costume in general. And then you're singing songs and praise to the dead around you. So you're like blending in with the dead in a way. And then the cakes was basically the offering from the people from the door-to-door houses to the monsters, which were the practices of the people doing door-to-door. What do you think of that analysis?
That's kind of like spot on. And then I guess like over the years, when they started abandoning the beliefs of, you know, different realms and all that, it just kind of became more for kids to, you know, put on outfits and go door to door and get candy, you know, and they're keeping it alive, but it's a totally different meaning now, you know?
Yeah, it's like still essence is there, just basically downplayed.
Yeah, I guess as the beliefs or way of thinking changes, it still has, you know, where it started, but it means totally different things, you know, so.
I mean, one tradition of Samhain is the pranks. Halloween pranks, tradition in Samhain. Tricks were often, this is the, you know, the prank for the tricks, were blamed on the fairies. So, the fairies, mysterious little mischief creatures, would pull tricks on the people around them to revoke an action. That's usually what a prank is. They would play tricks, get you go, get you to be flustered, I don't know, be mad, provoke some type of action behind the trick. So yeah, do you have anything like trick related that might sell up with the fairy lore a little bit?
Well, I do know, I think it was probably before me and you were born or whatever, but the night before Halloween used to be called Mischief Night, and that's when they'll go and pull all the pranks, do stuff like TP in the yard, or, you know, shaving cream, and stuff on cards, that kind of stuff. They used to do that the night before Halloween and call it Mischief Night, and I don't know when it stopped being a thing or whatever, but it's still on Halloween. People are always still kind of keeping up that aspect of scaring each other or messing with each other, pulling some kind of pranks like that. That's what it's more about now, is scaring people, you know?
No teeth in the house, throwing eggs on them, or that classic movie scene, the kids get in trouble, or the police get alive, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And
you know,
I think I was gonna say it should. Most of the pranks to do were supposed to be all in fun and good humor, and weren't necessarily to like cause harm. But you know, sometimes you know how people get out of hand, they make it go too far. But
you know, like I don't know, lighting up a bag of people from the dog and. It gets going everywhere.
On the porch. That is definitely not really nice because it smells.
It's going everywhere. Oh god.
Yeah, imagine you're like, what is going on? And you step in it. Oh
god. And you know, fairies are very mischievous in nature, so that's where the tricks come into play. You know, people believe those tricks from the fairies. They were just interacting with the humans in a way they know how. Mischief and fun and just nonsensical nature. So that's kind of like retreating philosophy. And then we have a rebranding of Samhain. the transition to modern Halloween has like a Renaissance type effect. We have the Wicca in the Song. So what do you know about the Wicca and Songwin going together?
Well, from what I understand about Wicca, and you talk about like the Wicker Man, stuff like that. Honestly, I wanted to say that it was part of that. Like I said, it was Wicca is, and they say in Celtic culture or pagans or whatever, it was about supposedly human sacrificing aspect, and that's what they did for the gods for protection or whatever. But I remember reading things or learning about that. They're not even sure Wicca was either really a thing or it was just something that was, made up by the Roman scholar that supposedly saw it so many years ago, so many hundreds of years or whatever.
Oh yeah. It has a similar song connection. Festival celebrations of solstices and equinoxes. The honoring of a male, a god, and a female goddess. The interpretation of folklorism and other natural objects into rituals. Wiccans practice of religion according to an ethical code, and many believe in reincarnation. So that, kind of plays into play of Samhain. Samhain being a fire festival right between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. So it kind of plays into a natural theme of the harvest with folklorism, and kind of shifts into Wiccan belief as well.
Yeah, and I know they have like the Wiccan culture is based off of like natural medicines, herbs, and stuff. So I figured that Wicker is also goes back to dealing with the harvest. That's when everything is ready to be picked or pulled and used, because that's when everything's is like ripe, and it's ready to go. Because if you wait a little bit longer, the cold spells are gonna come before actual winter happens, and it's gonna kill off the plants and stuff. So that's when I guess maybe even when they say about magic that is strongest, because that's when they had all the stuff that they used for spells or whatever, because it was ready to go. Because if you don't use it, then it's gonna die off, so to speak. So
the impact in which it was originally brewed or made.
Yes, their impact is lessened because it's not as good, or
not as potent. It's not as potent, so it's less damage.
Yes, there you go. See, you're using the words that are in my head. I just can't pronounce them because big words make me think, and then trying to think and talk at the same time doesn't always work well.
And one thing of like potions lessening or less potent is radiation. Certain things have a half-life. Over time does degrade different metals and the different things in the periodic table. So, maybe the potions have a half-life and they really quick, like a couple weeks or a couple years,
Yeah. So now since we did like a history of how things is Halloween and stuff, let's talk about, since we were talking about trick-or-treating earlier, when did you stop trick-or-treating?
Most of my trick-or-treating experience was mostly in the neighborhood. And then we went to other big neighborhoods, got that candy, and then surprisingly, my candy was lasting for months. Sometimes it would last so long that I had my mom try to go in my room and steal the candy because I wasn't eating.
Well, how old were you when you kind of stopped trick-or-treating?
Maybe, I don't think I necessarily stopped. I just did more like trunk and treats kind of stuff.
Right, okay. Well, I get
playing trunk or treat and doing organization or club or group activity and scrape the car.
No, those are always fun. I like doing that. I want to say, I think the last year I did it was actually when I was 18 because I was, the girl I was dating at the time was still in high school. She wanted to go, and they're like her friends or whatever, and I was like, sure, whatever, and I ran around. It was like the last year I did it, so to speak, before I started, going with either be like my nephews or like neighbor kids or stuff like that. Instead of going and getting the candy, I was more of just like watching kids run around and supervise them and stuff. I kind of transitioned into that, and then and instead of Halloween trick-or-treating, I went to Halloween parties.
True. Yeah, I think the transition we stopped going trick-or-treating is hard to say, but when I stopped, we were still giving out candy to other people.
Oh yeah, so I did that too.
I would eat the candy some of that we had afterwards. So we basically, once we bought the candy, had a stash, and now we didn't have to go.
You're like, we'll just keep this here for ourselves, so we don't have to. Well, what I was gonna say is, like, I remember, man, I don't know if they haven't done it here or whatever, but I'm hearing that trick or treating not a thing or whatever. But man, it was 2020 in the neighborhood I was living at. This was my better half's idea, but their 2020 was COVID going, so we decided to make like little individual like bags of candy. We had probably like a couple hundred or whatever, and by the end of the night, from like 6 o'clock to like 8:30, 9 o'clock, I was dressed up, scaring people. That's what I like to do, and we ended up handing out all the candy and stuff. It was crazy. I dropped like $50 on like the little bag of candy, probably even more because I like to eat candy, whatever, don't judge me. But it's, even as an adult, I still enjoy Halloween, whether it's the horror movies or, going to a party where I get to dress up and have a little fun and enjoy like an adult beverage. Like I said, I think it's Halloween in its essence. It's all about getting together, I think it's the actual beginning of what we call the holiday season here. It's having a reason to get together with friends and family and just, having fun, having a good time. Hey, no yawning, it's bad.
I had last year, there was a trunk or treat, working with a club, the anime club, we made our own car, decorated it, all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. I managed to give out the candy, stuff like that. Even though I was the one who decorated the entire vehicle. But that's undersaid. Typically, my experience is the entire month of October. I'm in produce, and we have pumpkins everywhere. We have cider everywhere. We have apples. It's just everything coming in the season. Everything's changing, and we have too many pumpkins. Let's just say that there's not enough to give people. They're not buying enough.
You gotta start handing them out. Here, take a pumpkin. Go.
Yes. Like
not too.
The other day, figuratively. I had an idea. Move the pumpkins. We had a pallet of like boxes with pumpkins, like tiger stripe pumpkin and this other weird pumpkins. And basically, management liked my idea so much to move those dang on pumpkins. They employed me. So, okay, cool. You want to stop this project and move them up front and move them around the table where we have all the pumpkin theme items like pumpkin latte and the pumpkin spice and the pumpkin.
So you became the pumpkin king.
Why are you making me do it? Because you brought it up, we need to sell the pumpkins. I was like, whatever.
So you became the pumpkin king. Awesome.
Sure. I don't like that idea, but it was a pain.
You became the Pumpkin King. I mean, yeah, whatever you gotta do to get rid of it. I was gonna say, like, literally not far from my house, there's a farm, and they still have a bunch of pumpkins out in their fields still. Even though it's like every weekend I see, they're putting them out to sell at their little stand that they bring up on the side of the road. But then you driving by, you see a big old pumpkin still in the field. So yeah.
Oh boy. Another thing with Halloween, we get pumpkins. We set them up on our porch. Sometimes we carve them, sometimes we don't. But we also have pumpkins that we don't carve. And they last through like the middle or end of November. They usually last a good long time, surprisingly. And then we throw in the ditch. Or the squirrels get into it, whatever comes first. Squirrels love eating pumpkins. I was like, squirrels, get away. This is my pumpkin. But yeah, if you come outside, you might see a squirrel trying to dig into the pumpkin. Or you might see a bushy tail coming from a pumpkin.
Pumpkins are great.
Especially when we don't call them, and the squirrels just get into it. They love it. They just started doing that recently.
Squirrels get in there.
Well, at least we didn't have another repeat history of, I don't know, 7 pumpkins being stolen right off our porch. That was interesting.
So now as an adult, you're dealing with the selling pumpkins and all that stuff. I get it.
Yeah. Why do we have so many? We have 2 big pallets of heirloom pumpkins. These are the odd-looking pumpkins. The green one, the weird orange, the white, all these big ones. And then the large and jumbo pumpkins are selling. Those are the regular orange pumpkins. Little ones are kind of selling. The star pumpkins are selling. We had, like, I think, Rose Globe with a dressing up the characters kind of thing. I think they had, like, 1 left or something.
Yeah.
I threw away 3 pumpkins a day. I had to reach in and get out of the bin to the lowest level and get it out. It was a heirloom pumpkin.
I was gonna say, I remember last year I bought a pumpkin and it didn't really start rotting until sometime in December, and it was cold out. But then I had another pumpkin and within like a couple weeks it started rotting in the inside and collapsed. So pumpkins are weird. I just thought it was cool to say.
Especially if you don't get squirrels trying to poke holes in it, it's pretty good.
They're just trying to get some stuff,
They're trying to get everything they can from that pumpkin.
Yeah, hey, squirrels gotta eat too. I can't say, this Halloween I'm hoping it's gonna be fun. Got some horror movies I'm planning on watching. And I wanna get into the spirit of the season. And I wanna start early a little bit this year. But,
speaking of that might be some movies I wanna watch. Who knows? But as we come to a close, talking about the Halloween origins of the lore, just remember, Sonwin is still played out today in just different aspects of what it originally was. Leslie, thank you for being here and able to give correspondence on Halloween and your inspiration into the identity of what Halloween is in Sonwin.
yeah, no problem. I always enjoy doing things with you. We always make it interesting. But I am working on some Halloween stuff, so I'm hoping to get that out. I got a couple photos that I've started on, and I got a video I just got done making. I gotta just make sure everything works, and I'm gonna be posting that soon too.
Alright, well, sounds like good. And this concludes the episode of Halloween Origins and Lore. You can check us out when you have podcasts near you. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. www.mcanimepodcast.com is the official website where you can find us and have visual posts and everything that is MC Anime Podcast. Join us on the Patreon community where you can support us, be a special guest, give topic proposal, poll participation, and more in Patreon community. And thank you so much, and enjoy. Bye, guys.
This concludes another episode of MC Anime Podcast. MC Anime Podcast is available on podcast directories like Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. We also have our website at mcanimepodcast.com. If you want to directly support us, then follow Patreon blog MC Anime. Finally, if you want services for hire, then we're available on Fiverr for audio and video production, graphic design, idea consulting, and blog and article writing.